The best team in the world almost never wins the World Cup. That is not an opinion. That is a pattern backed by decades of data, official FIFA technical reports, and betting markets. Brazil entered Qatar 2022 as the #1 ranked team on the planet. Belgium was number 2. France was number 4. Only one of those teams lifted the trophy. And it was not Brazil. It was not Belgium. Belgium did not even make it out of the group stage. This video is going to show you exactly why the most talented squads keep falling short. We are going to go deep into the science, the statistics, the psychology, and the patterns that repeat themselves every 4 years. By the end, you will understand the hidden formula that actually wins World Cups. And you will never watch a tournament the same way again. Let us start with a number that should change how you see everything. Opta's supercomputer, one of the most advanced football prediction systems in the world, gave the 2026 pre-tournament favorite just a 16.1% chance of winning the title. That means even the best team on earth had less than a 1 in 6 shot at winning. In any other sport, the best team wins more often. But the World Cup is not any other sport. It is 7 matches across roughly a month, with no second chances and no points table to save you. 1 bad half. 1 penalty miss. 1 deflected goal in the 117th minute. And it is over. That is not bad luck. That is the structure of the tournament working exactly as designed. The World Cup was never built to crown the best team. It was built to crown the most complete team under the most extreme conditions. There is a massive difference between those two things. Now here is where most football fans get this completely wrong. They look at a team's squad value, their FIFA ranking, their star names, and they think that is the blueprint for a champion. But the data tells a completely different story. In 2022, France had the most expensive squad on the planet, valued at over €1.5 billion. England's squad was worth $1.36 billion. Spain's was $1.22 billion. Argentina won the whole thing with a squad valued at $800 million, lower than 5 other teams at that tournament. The champion was not the richest team. The champion was the most complete team. And that word, complete, is the key to everything we are about to break down. Let us go through the 4 real reasons great teams keep failing at World Cups. Not the reasons pundits give you. The reasons that show up in the data every single time. The first reason is one that almost nobody talks about. Defending is faster to build than attacking. That sounds simple, but the consequences are enormous. FIFA's own technical study group said it directly. Compact defending is easier to train than elite attacking mechanisms during short international camps. Think about what that means. A great team arrives at a World Cup with a brilliant attacking identity built over years at club level. But their opponents, smaller nations, less famous players, have spent weeks drilling a tight defensive block. Not a perfect one. Not an exciting one. But a functional one. And in a one-match knockout format, functional beats brilliant more often than fans want to admit. Great teams are built to dominate league seasons, 80, 90, 100 matches, where small advantages compound over time. But the World Cup does not care about compound advantages. It only cares about the 90 minutes in front of you right now. So when Spain circulate the ball perfectly outside a compact Moroccan block at Qatar 2022, they look brilliant. But they are not breaking through. They are not creating real danger. And when the game goes to penalties, Spain, with a squad worth over €1 billion, with a possession style the world has admired for 20 years, go out. Sterile domination is not control. That is the lesson Spain 2022 wrote into history. And they are not alone. Spain 2014 arrived as the reigning world champions, the reigning European champions, the most decorated international side of their era. They were projected as FIFA's #1 team going into Brazil. They lost 5-1 to the Netherlands in their opening match. They lost 2-0 to Chile 2 days later. They were gone. Not because they lost their talent overnight, but because the possession identity that made them unstoppable in league formats became predictable once intensity, recovery, and opposition preparation caught up with them. When a team's only answer to a problem is more of the same, a compact block becomes a wall they can never get through. This is the first crack in the myth of the great team. Talent gets you to the tournament. Adaptability gets you through it. Now here is the second reason, and it involves a statistic that should make every football fan stop and reconsider what they think they know. 42% of all goals at the 2018 World Cup came from set pieces. not 30%. Not the league average of around 25 to 33%. 42. By the semifinal stage in 2018, 68 set-piece goals had already been scored, breaking the previous tournament record of 62 from the entire 1998 World Cup. Let that land. By the time two teams were fighting for a final spot, one dead ball phase of the game had already rewritten history. And here is the part that matters for great teams. In 2018, 15 of the 32 teams scored at least half of their goals from set pieces. Many of the squads that looked like great attacking units were surviving on restarts. 5 of the 11 goals across the quarterfinals came from set pieces. 2 of the 4 semifinal goals came from set pieces. The deeper the tournament goes, the more it becomes a dead ball competition. And great teams built around fluid, rehearsed open play patterns, are more vulnerable to this than fans realize. England proved this from the other side. Gareth Southgate built an entire set-piece operation in 2018. England scored 9 set-piece goals, a World Cup record, and they still did not reach the final, which tells you something important. Set-piece supremacy in one phase is not enough. Champions need to combine dead ball quality with defensive control and open play vertical threat. England had one of those 3 things. France had all 3. France in 2018 were not the most beautiful team in the tournament. StatsBomb measured France's defense at just 0.47 expected goals conceded per 90 minutes, and only 0.05 expected goals per shot conceded. That is not just a low shot count. That is a team poisoning the quality of every chance opponents were allowed to create. France's manager, Didier Deschamps, made a specific adjustment after the first match, bringing Blaise Matuidi into a more defensive role on the left to protect Mbappé's freedom to attack. A star player needed a worker behind him. Without that hidden labor, the brilliance does not happen. That adjustment is the kind of thing that never makes the headline. But it is exactly what separates champions from favorites. The third reason great teams fail is something the psychology research makes impossible to ignore. Elite players choke more often than average players in the biggest moments. That is not a provocative claim. That is what the academic data shows. Pierre Jourdais's research into major tournament penalty shootouts found that higher status players and higher status teams perform worse under extreme penalty pressure than their lower status equivalents. Think about that. The bigger the name, the harder it is to stay free in the moment that decides everything. And here is the mechanism. Jourdais's work identified 3 steps: ego threat, emotional distress, and then self-regulation failure. When you are expected to win, when the world is watching and the narrative has already written your victory, the stakes are personal, not just sporting. And when players feel that threat, their bodies respond. A 2022 academic study found that under high-pressure penalty conditions, cognitive anxiety increased significantly, respiration rate went up significantly, and self-confidence fell significantly. Elite professional athletes, still subject to the same physiological cascade. Now, here is the most striking finding. Jourdais's research found that players in more threatening shootout situations prepared their kicks faster, and faster preparation was directly associated with more misses. The panic does not always show up as visible panic. Sometimes it shows up as someone walking to the spot a half-second too quickly. Sometimes it shows up as a decision made before the goalkeeper has even moved. And once a team carries penalty trauma, once a nation has a history of shootout failures, that history travels. A PubMed study analyzed 309 major tournament shootout kicks across World Cups and European Championships from 1976 to 2006. Players from teams with prior penalty losses performed worse and prepared faster, even when the current takers had never been part of any previous failure. The culture carries the memory. England lost 5 of their first 6 major tournament shootouts. That is not a coincidence. That is a repeating pattern created by the expectations, the pressure, and the psychological weight of national identity. Great teams carry more of this weight than any other team at the tournament. And in knife-edge moments, that weight has physical consequences. Now, the fourth reason is the one that connects all the others. It is what FIFA's 2022 technical data calls transition quality, and it is the place where great teams make the most catastrophic single errors. Look at what the data from Qatar 2022 actually shows. Winning teams produced 42 counterattacks that ended in a shot. Those 42 attacks produced 11 goals. Losing teams produced 12 counterattacks that ended in a shot. Those 12 attacks produced 0 goals. Not fewer goals. 0. And here is the thing that makes this even more striking. Losing teams actually attacked faster on average, 31.73 kilometers per hour compared to 30.6 for winners. They were quicker. They just could not decide. Speed without decision quality is not a weapon. It is noise. Winners in 2022 also completed 130 receptions in behind on counterattacks versus 53 for losers. They broke defensive lines 45 times on counters versus 20 for losers. The difference was not pace. It was intelligence in the moment the opportunity opened. And here's where the great team problem becomes most visible. Great teams are built to dominate possession. They expect to have the ball most of the time. Their defensive shape assumes they will be on the front foot. So when they push forward in search of a goal, especially when they are chasing one, they expose themselves in transition. Brazil 2022 were leading Croatia in extra time. 1 defensive lapse. 1 deflected equalizer in the 117th minute. And the entire weight of that match shifted. Brazil, with a squad worth 928 million euros, ranked number 1 in the world, managed by one of the most experienced coaches in football, could not recover. They went to penalties. They lost. Not because they were outplayed across the whole match. Because their game state protection in the most critical moment was not good enough. Argentina did the same thing wrong earlier in that tournament, and survived. They lost to Saudi Arabia in the group stage as the 3rd-ranked team in the world. That should have broken them. Instead, Lionel Scaloni adjusted the tactics. He changed the shape. He redistributed the roles. Argentina moved through the rest of the tournament like a team that had already learned its hardest lesson. Spain 2010 did the same thing. They lost their opening group match and still won the entire World Cup. The pattern is clear. Champions survive shocks by adapting. Great teams that fail often protect their identity even when the tournament is telling them it is not working. And the managers who understand this, the ones who are willing to edit what they built, are the ones who lift the trophy. Deschamps adjusted France's structure mid-tournament. Scaloni changed Argentina's entire tactical approach after their Saudi Arabia loss. These are not minor tweaks. These are acts of managerial humility in the middle of a crisis. The teams that were eliminated often had managers who trusted the plan more than the evidence in front of them. Now let us zoom out and look at this from the highest level. The last 3 World Cup winners, Germany in 2014, France in 2018, Argentina in 2022 were all top 5 in squad market value. Talent still matters. But none of them were number 1 by value. None of them were the unanimous favorite. Germany won from plus 550 odds. France won from plus 650 odds. Argentina won from plus 550 odds. The market was right about the cluster, talent in that range, but it could not predict the ordering within it. And the research into squad age tells us why. The optimal age window for a World Cup squad sits around 26 to 28 years old. Old enough to handle pressure and read the game. Young enough to sustain high-intensity defensive transitions for 90-plus minutes. Argentina's average age in 2022 was 29.2, slightly above that window. But their experience was functional. Messi was embedded in a structure that did not depend on him in every phase. The squad around him could defend, could press, could absorb punishment. Brazil's average age was 29.4, also above the window. But their experience was concentrated in a way that made certain positions fragile when the team needed to defend a lead. The difference is not how old your squad is. The difference is whether age translates into collective tournament wisdom or into individual ego protection. Golden generations fail more often than they should. And the reason is almost never that the players lacked ability. It is that the bigger the names, the harder it becomes to simplify the roles. When everyone in a squad is a star, no one wants to be the worker. Matuidi was France's worker in 2018. He made Mbappé free. Without him, that France team looks completely different. And that is the real champion formula, hidden in plain sight. Sufficient talent, not the most, but enough. Squad age near the performance experience sweet spot. A defensive structure that suppresses shot quality, not just shot volume. Set-piece preparation treated as a primary attacking phase, not an afterthought. Transition clarity, winning more of the moments that matter, not winning more of the ball. Emotional regulation, the ability to survive a shock and adapt, not just perform when the plan works. and a manager who edits the structure live during the tournament without losing the team's belief. This is not a magical formula. It is not complicated. But it is exactly the opposite of what the world celebrates before every tournament. The world celebrates the squad worth 1.5 billion euros. The world celebrates the FIFA #1 ranking. The world celebrates the golden generation. And then watches it come apart in a quarterfinal. Because the World Cup does not reward the best team. It rewards the most complete team under the most unforgiving conditions imaginable. Morocco were ranked 22nd in the world going into Qatar 2022. They reached the semifinals. They were compact. They were disciplined. They treated set pieces as weapons. They protected their transitions. And they knocked out Belgium, Spain, and Portugal along the way. 3 of the most expensive squads at that tournament. All gone. Sent home by a team that understood what the World Cup actually rewards. So the next time you hear someone say a certain team has the talent to win the World Cup, ask a different question. Ask, can they defend transitions in a knockout game at 1-0 up? Ask, what percentage of their goals came from set pieces in qualifying? Ask, what is their psychological history in penalty shootouts? Ask, how flexible is their manager when the plan stops working? Because those are the questions the tournament is going to ask them. And most great teams have no answer. Now here's what should keep you watching football differently going forward. We covered why the best squads fail. But there is a second, deeper question that most people never think to ask. What actually happens inside a team's dressing room in the 48 hours after a major tournament shock? And why does that moment predict the final result more accurately than any pre-tournament statistic? That answer goes even further into the psychology, the coaching decisions, and the hidden cultural dynamics that decide who lifts the trophy. If you want to understand that side of it, the next video on this channel goes straight there. Watch it now. Because the more you understand this, the more you will see things in knockout football that almost no one else is seeing.